I grew up in many parts of the world. My stepfather worked in the oil fields in Venezuela. So I lived in Venezuela until the age of 11. And this is the camp where we lived. This was our house up here, and this was the schoolhouse. This is where my mother taught me how to read and how to write.
Just before the Olympic Games in Berlin in 1936, when Hitler was in power, my mother had been accompanying the German women's track and field team all over Europe because she spoke French and German. She also spoke English and Dutch. And my dad was a German champion runner, had been pre-selected for the Olympics, but the Nazi bosses found out that my parents had never joined the party. So they were both kicked out and met, and I was the product of that. They got married, and there I was. So my relation with the Olympic Games goes far back, practically into my mother's womb.
When we lived in Rome, the war broke out, must have been in 1939, and I look out of my window as a child, and I saw all these planes coming. I remember the sound of the planes in my ears coming. We left and took one of the last ships to New York. And as children, we would play hide and go seek in this boat, and we thought this was absolutely wonderful, and we had no idea that maybe submarines were chasing us. Then there was the end of the war, and I went to the Madeira School in Washington, D.C. And from there, I went to London, and I got my degree in biology. And then I met my husband, and we lived in Geneva. And there I also went to the university, and I got my degree in Egyptology.
When I finished high school, I moved to Geneva, which had one of the very best graduate programs for interpreters. Once I became an interpreter, I started working for the International Olympic Committee in Lausanne. Then, in 1978, I came to MIIS to run their graduate program for translators and interpreters. The Olympics in Los Angeles, 1984, I got a call from the International Olympic Committee in Switzerland saying, can you take over? And ever since, I have been chief interpreter for the Olympic Summer and Winter Games. So it's been 31 years. I remember the very first time that chomp was mentioned to me in 78, on the first day of my interview. My predecessor said, you have to come with me and have lunch at the hospital. I said, what? Yeah, we have this fabulous hospital up the hill, and people who work here, they go there for lunch. So that was my first impression with chomp. Little, of course, did I know that Maria would be involved with the auxiliary for many years, and that unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time, she would undergo 12 surgeries there.
I'm a diabetic, and what we are supporting in our trust is to help people learn about diabetes, get educated about it.
20 grams of fiber.
This is why we're so appreciative of the Weber Fund for Diabetes Prevention.
1 hour a day, so 6.
One of our clients right now is 6 years old and has prediabetes. And so this is the issue of prevention, because we can help children and young adults, younger and younger, so that we can stop diabetes in its tracks.
Children, sometimes they learn what we tell them to do. Most of the time they learn what they watch us do. But teaching them about exercise and nutrition, to my mind, is kind of like teaching your child how to swim so that they don't drown. We tend to forget that. We tend to think of treatment of diseases and illnesses as something that you treat with a prescription. The Weber Fund recognizes that it has to have an educational component to it. It allows for care for people who might not be able to afford it, and should allow for some innovative programs that might allow us to use different models for caring for diabetes.
I've had to accompany colleagues at the Olympics who got sick to other hospitals in many parts of the world. And chomp, I know it's considered one of the best hospitals in the country, but even internationally, it really stands out. And we are very, very fortunate to be able to do this for the community. Because, when we give to CHUMP, we give to the community. It's the community hospital of the Monterey Peninsula.